Hello friends, it's John Klein III of episode 27 of Shadow and Flame of Magic, the podcast, and we are going to review our Dazzler 41, so let's get to it. And once again, thank you, Francisco, for providing the theme song. And this is Dazzler 41, which would have cost you 65 cents. In the UK, it would have been 30 pence. And in Canada, it would have been 75. And this came out, cover dated January 1986. So I would have been 4 years old to the month. And the writer is Archie Goodwin, penciler Paul Chadwick, inker Jackson Geis, letterer Jim Novak, colorist Petra Scottis, editor Mike Carlin, which that name sounds familiar, and editor-in-chief Jim Shooter. And this is the penultimate issue, and reading it sort of feels like, well, yeah, the other issues leading up to are like this, then I can see why it got canceled. But this is Stanley Presents Revelations. I know there are spies it opens up a splash page of the universe. So that's interesting. Inside cover ad is for the Mask line of toys, but not the Jim Carrey mask, but the Transformers type of toy. I don't know. It was before my time. Like, I'm familiar with the concept, but I don't have any connections to it. I know there are spy satellite photos of the way it looked from space. Despite what happened with the project, I still have a few sources in government who have clandestinely stayed in touch, but I wouldn't want to see that material. I much prefer to imagine in my mind's eye it has to be grander and more awesome. The flare of a star going nova. Only instead of originating in the dark of space, it radiates brilliantly up from Earth. The light of the Dazzler. And it doesn't... We get a little bit of what happened in the previous issue, but essentially there's two scientists, the Silence and Dusk, or Dust, with a T, and they have this one guy held hostage, and his name is Stomper. So the two scientists are a little older, and then Stomper has a mohawk, so he's hip and young. And Dust says, that's romantic, I realize, but my wife and I are romantic, Stomper. It's how we're able to look beyond the horror, never losing sight of our ultimate goal. I want it very clear what this all means to us. And essentially they're dialogue boxes, but he's essentially giving a giant monologue. And gotta be honest, reading this after dinner, I did start getting very sleepy because it's very wordy. And we'll get to the panel why I have this in my collection, but we'll continue. And maybe it'll make more sense to me now that I'm fresh from watching the first two episodes of Paramount Plus's School Spirits, which is a pretty good show, but so just awake at the moment. Someday in the future, Stomper, one success is finally ours. That moment I just described will no doubt be considered the birth of a new era. Of course, the actual event was a sensationalized publicity effort for a movie that was never released. I believe that aspect will fade in time. The important thing will be the Alison Blair, mutant with the power to absorb sound waves and convert them back into light, dazzled the gathered crowd with an amazing glow transduced from the war of 747 passenger jets. See Marvel graphic novel 12, Dazzler the movie. Which, of course, is one of the main reasons why Dazzler was created, was to become a multimedia sensation, and she never was given quite the chance. So I don't know, I feel like most of it came from the graphic novel, which seems weird that it came out towards the end of her solo series. and then her solo series ends. Like, oh, no one bought her one shot, so no one's buying her series. But maybe it was like one last ditch attempt to get people interested. You know that well, Stomper, because you were there with your fellow Outriders, Chuck and Mama, introduced last issue, so 40. 3 members of a thrill-seeking biker gang out of the fringe of the crowd, only slightly touched by the Dazzler's light, yet still awakened. Unless it worked like Power Rangers Turbo, where there was a movie and then there was a TV version, and then the two don't connect at all. Which I guess is true for the original Power Rangers movie as well. Like how that didn't. And then they had to remake a story that was on their budget. Which is weird because you think they would just recognize the movie and call that good. Sort of like what Nick's going to do in the next Ninja Turtle movie. How the movie's going to work as a very high produced pilot. And then it's going to launch a TV series. And then it's supposed to lead up to like villain one-shots that then lead into the movie. I don't know. Nick has a giant franchise marketing plan for this, so hopefully it works out. A happy accident learning of it from you and your friends. Our final step for success fell into place. Silence, and I always be grateful, Stomper, despite your recent unbelievable plunder. Not, some might say, isn't this enough? A self-efficient community that draws disturbed and disaffected youths like a magnet, and through unique mediation and therapy programs makes them useful and productive. Even violent, hardcore cases like you, Stomper. But Camp Silence isn't a dream, it's subterfuge. I mean, to regroup and salvage still, when you and your companions were drawn here, we saw what the brief exposure to Dazzler's light had awakened in the 3 of you. We knew she was the key to the dream. The dream they tried to crush almost 25 years ago. And then we're in a flashback, but still, like, narrating. Silence comes in. Darling, the project's canceled. I just got a warning call from Washington. Word about the deaths in our control group have leaked. There's every likelihood we'll be arrested. But our enhancement drug works. Yes, it's deadly, but the more I experiment with ultraviolet rays, the more I am certain the proper combination of them can reverse the drug's fatal effects. We're fighting a war. There will have to be casualties, and the addicts, criminals, and street slime who serve as our test subjects haven't suffered risk as great as we took ourselves. We put our lives on the line for these results. Can't the government show some courage? Surely they realize the Russians are experimenting with paranormal power enhancement. Wouldn't they rather lose a few human dregs than the race to unleash the full psychic potential of the human mind? The answer was no. Even those friendly to our project didn't dare take the chance. Not when the bad publicity might also jeopardize their efforts to gear up for a more conventional war erupting in Vietnam. So we fled like criminals, my wife and I, taking our secrets with us and our records as well. But then it's like, well, man, so this is like 4 pages of recap. So what was issue 40? And I can't remember if I have issue 40 or do I have issue 42 in my collection. I guess we'll find out next year. The early years were the worst, Stomper, learning to live as the fugitives and with the knowledge that even as our psi abilities kept growing, we were dying. Because in our faith, we had injected ourselves with more than enhancement drug than administered to later subjects. My wife and I each found was to use our developing powers to fight death, unpleasant ways to be sure, and temporarily. We won time from the Reaper, but to the day we live in his grasp. Yet there was hope. Without government support, we couldn't produce any significant new amounts of the drug, but just prior to being closed down, we made a magnificent discovery. As others would later find with LSD, our drug had a pass-along effect. It survived dormant in the offspring of many original subjects and new identities we sought out this next generation, most as well as disinfected as their parents, and started building a place they could be drawn to, this place where we experienced failure. Any combination of ultraviolet rays effective against the drug are equal fatally. We can't awaken their psi potential without killing them. They respond when I mentally reach out to draw them here. The drug is not totally dormant. There is an affinity among everyone touched by it. Something must exist to safely unlock it. The Dazzler. Your slight exposure to her light awakened the seed our experiment planted in you and your friend, Stomper. More importantly, it showed the potential at full exposure to cleanse. The dream was possible again, but we had to win the mutant woman to us. And in the end, after weaving an elaborate web of accomplish that very thing, I trusted the final step to barbarians. I had no choice, Stomper. We successfully used you three as hunters and trackers of others. We thought only you had enough awakened psi abilities to appear to her as fellow mutants, as friends, as rescuers. Instead, at the first complication, you reacted like bullies, like the road-riding animals you used to be, shown last issue. You alienated her, battled her, and in your ultimate defeat somehow burned away your developing powers. Lynn, like a spoiled child, you came home hoping to be forgiven. I can't do it, Stomper. Not when you caused us to postpone the dream yet another time. All I can do now is assure you you're still part. You still play a part in seeing it fulfilled. And then dust. Literally becomes dust. The last conscious act of the young man called Stomper is to scream in horror and perish with the knowledge that no matter how loud the sound, it will never be heard. It's done. I'm sorry about the scream, my dear. In the final moments, my control over them sometimes slips a bit, and I was prepared, darling. That important thing is... There's an ad here for Newton's Fruit Chewy Mix-Up. There's we gotta figure out. There's fig Newtons, there's apple Newtons, cherry, and blueberry. I had to do that word scramble on the fly. Which I don't know if I feel like they just make non-fat fig and regular fig now, right? I wouldn't mind trying apple and Newtons. I almost call them apple fig Newtons, but that's not what we're doing. You have a strong new host body. The best available at the moment. I hope it's not too unappealing. You've put up with so much over the years. We both have dust. The constant threat of death, decay. You fight it by changing bodies. I, by mentally holding back its advancement within me. Yet now, after so many years, this latest setback makes our ultimate goal. Still close silence. The Dazzler's light will cleanse what's destroying us and awaken the new wave we've gathered around us. I do like how he keeps referring to her as the Dazzler. Like the Batman. But I just checked the cover, and it's not called the Dazzler. So, I guess they're just being very formal. This country's wrath is rising against mutants. Soon enough, those feelings will carry over to most so-called superheroes. Many are already allied or associated with mutants. Our new wave will be alternative strong enough to combat mutants or superheroes, but created by humans out of human potential. The government that rejected us will embrace us again, silence, but this time we'll retain control of our drug, of the new wave, and of the Dazzler herself. She's out there somewhere, my dear. We haven't lost her yet. It's just a matter of discovering a proper new plan to totally secure all that power for our needs. And we catch up with Dazzler, who's just beating a bunch of thugs, but like scientific thugs. And they're trying to drain her. Like they're just attacking her en masse, trying to, just drain her of all of her sound. But as they make new sounds, she's able to shoot more, light blasts. And then I guess they're down to the last one, and she's Dazzler's like, now I had a question about these riders who might have passed through here. Instead of answering, you chose to demonstrate just how tough Denver's toughest motorcycle gang is. And you're all done impressing me. Perhaps you're ready to try talking. And the guy's like, you're scary, lady, but so what's happening to any deacon who rats on another biker? And then we see, is his name Chase or is it Cameron? Let's see here. Okay, it is Chase. And Chase comes in here and he's a bounty hunter. Trying to get a bounty on Dazzler. He's like, that was a warning shot, Dazzler. Be glad you're You're not wanted dead or alive. Run off on me again and nobody's gonna quibble if I bring you in crippled. Don't have to be strictly private business, brother. Professional bounty hunter. Used to ride a little myself. Club out of Fresno. So then he throws Dazzler in the back of his Jeep. And his dog, Cerebus, is licking Dazzler's face. So clearly they've been working together and they've been on the road a lot lately. And she fed... I imagine it's a classic story of the bounty hunter becoming friendly with the bounty of the opposite gender. And she fed Cerebus all of Chase's cigarettes because she hates the smell of them. No, not cigarettes, cigars. So even worse. And he's getting tired of how he keeps being ditched by her. But he found her again in Denver. And so now they're just trying to get back to LA so he can get his money. They were back in the camp Silence. They can be settled there, not by more running in a way, trying to find a bunch of fanatics holed up in some place called Camp Silence. It is the mediation hour. Automatically, without being summoned, they each file from the room in the main house, moving solemnly, noiselessly toward the converted barn that is their meeting hall, where she waits. I guess it's Camp Silence, but she's also called Silence. And opening her arms, she embraces this family created by the experiments of her and her husband, embraces them with her greatest power, the power of silence. It began as a side effect, part of the extreme concentration she brought to her constant battle against the death advancing within her. As her psychic talent grew more over the years, it became almost a physical thing, capable of being oppressive or protective, maddening or serene. Now it comforts and calms those gathered before her, even as she draws strength from the latent psi force within each of them and uses it to reach out. So we're now on page 11. On the nation's east coast, within a darkened mansion, not far from the city of New York, a special machine hums tirelessly. It is Cerebro, and it was created by Professor Charles Xavier to detect mutants with superhuman abilities. The actions of the woman called Silence do not escape its notice. By its circuitized criteria, they register as artificial in origin, non-mutant. No more cause for its alert system to sound than if Spider-Man were swinging across the skyline. And here we get the panel that will get a young Mr. Klein to throw some money up and buy a comic. Others are affected less. She is Rachel. She's one of the now outlawed mutant group organized by Cerebro's creator, and she is a telepath. And Rachel wakes up thinking, again? Like a shadow stepping into my sleep, as if someone were psychically communicating, only on a strange new wavelength. Another nightmare for my life before the X-Men? Or maybe I should have never had let Kitty Pryde introduce me to Heath Bar Crunch Ice Cream. Boom. I would literally buy a comic if you just put the name Kitty Pryde into it. Clearly. And I missed it the first time and had to go online to like UncannyXmen.net and read the notes, because I was like, I know someone told me to buy this comic. And then I had to like go like find a page and find Rachel, and I was like, okay, let me flip through it. And by the time I got to page 11, I was very sleepy and was rereading panels over and over again and just being like lulling myself to sleep. But now reading it coming out of my stupor, I was just like, oh, Rachel, here we go. Here we go. And UncannyXmen.net was helpful in saying that Kitty doesn't appear at all in any issue of Dazzler, but they met in one Uncanny 131, and then again at 210 or 208, one of those numbers, right before the Outback era. If you haven't had Heath Bar Crunch ice cream, One person, when we were still using laundromats, we were talking about going to Dairy Queen afterwards, and some guy interrupted our conversation and recommended we try the Heath Blizzard. And for a while, though, that was my Blizzard of choice. So I can relate to the temptations of the Heath bar. The Heath by itself, very sticky on the old teeth. And now I'm more of a cherry Blizzard guy, which it used to be called like cherry, like cocoa cherry, and now it's called Cherry's Lovers. And I'm pretty much just holding strong until the s'mores comes back. So let's go back to our quest to read all narration boxes and comics. And still, the reaching out goes on. We see this at the State Correctional Facility in Chanute, Kansas. His name is Arthur Allen Smith, an abandoned child, parents unknown. Most of his life has been spent in orphanages and institutions. A model prisoner eligible for special privileges, he's currently serving a 3-year sentence for auto theft. Because of his splendid record, there is a talk of an early parole for Arthur. Because of his emotional problems, there is talk it may be denied. Arthur has 2 obsessions. One is for the singer Allison Blair, best known as the Dazzler, whom in one of his rare periods of freedom he once saw in a live performance. And having never experienced even friendship with a woman, fell hopelessly in love. The other is that strange forces reach out to touch his mind, conjuring images of comfort, happiness, and great power waiting to be given him that. Plus hints of things deep, dark, and terrible he has not meant to receive. And he just has been writing over and over, La Puma is Roja, which is red, but Pluma? And then all of a sudden he started writing, Save the Lady. Mediation's over. The woman caused silence again, turns her thoughts inward to fight death, to worry over her husband and their dream. Gradually, though she expels all those concerned, her concentration becomes pure and total, and silence covers the house and surrounding grounds like a starry night itself. While in Denver, we see Allison's dad show up and start talking to her. Dazzler's like, enough, Chance, since you first arrested me back in Arizona, back in Dazzler 38. I've been meekly coordinated because it seems like the right course. No more. If you can't see that you've pulled me into something much bigger than the charges against me in Los Angeles, then you're at least going to discover just how impossible I am to handle when I don't cooperate. And maybe if I throw enough light at you, you'll see you've been set up as much as I was. Where's the agent you were to meet? Never checked in because I believe you're about to make a valid point, Allie. But if I hadn't warned the hotel staff to be prepared for a possible scene when you arrived, it might be summoning the police or National Guard this instant. Dad? There's a 2-page spread here about Amazing Spider-Man and Where's the Captain Mystery. And Peter Parker is being given an assignment by J. Jonah Jameson that to find Captain Crunch, and there's $1 million reward. And Spider-Man finds a bottle with some numbers on it, and you too can win $1 million. And so father and daughter reunite. Oh, Dad, how did you get here? Find me. Ever since revealing to the public I'm a mutant, I've avoided contacting you or Mom for fear. It might bring harm to us? Allie, too many times in the past I hindered rather than helped you. Now I welcome any risk just to show those days are over. Though my contacts as a judge, I recently learned of some very strange goings-on involving you and I once considered a most respectable firm, U.S. Bail Bonds. Follow up on that, what led me... And then Chase is like, hold on, you say something wrong with this place that hired me? Oh, certain of their employees, these connected with authorizing you to hound my daughter seem to have vanished or fled. I believe this explains why a colleague in Los Angeles was able to provide this material. And Chase says, these are court records involving civilian complaints against Allison and Roman Neckleball growing out of that movie promotional stunt at LA's airport. They indicate, no, Mr. Chase, they Okay, so is his name Chance Chase? That's a awkward name. No, Mr. Chase, they prove everything was resolved by Nekobaw's lawyer. Allison was never required to appear in court, and U.S. bail bond played no part in the matter. Until someone later furnished you with a warrant and bail agreement forged, obviously, as a standard check with the police or court would have shown. Perhaps the firm's reputation, along with an extremely large reward, salute you, Mr. Chase. Now, if you excuse us, I have a car waiting. You were a little rough, Dad. Despite the fireworks and the yelling before, I'd hoped to win Chase over as an ally. Sometimes I forget I'm not always speaking from the bench, Allie. I suppose my main thought was to whisk you off to safety and quickly as possible. And then they start driving away. And Chase is just running around, like, wondering how he'd been so duped. And then he goes into the room. I'm trying to think of what you call Mr. Allison. Oh man, what's Dazzler's real name? I feel like we just said it. Allison Blair? No. I'm trying to see what. Oh, no, I was right. Yeah, it's Allison Blair. So he's Carter Blair. And then he finds a skeleton in Mr. Blair's room. He's like, "Dear sweet heaven, you've been very quiet since we left Denver, Allie. Reconsidering, I thought I'd be able to just sit back and take this ride to Camp Silence, but I can't. I have to ask. Who are you? The looks, the sound of the voice are perfect. It's more than an impersonation, but though it was something I was always wished he would do, my father never called me Allie in his life. Ah, tricky business making your own consciousness dominate others until you can take control of their body. All those memories, emotions to be drawn upon and conquered. Carter Blair was trying to change, but still basically a cold man. I suppose I overcompensated. Find us a spot with some room, Jared." And that's the driver. "My boy, the mutant mind's difficult for me to scan or influence, but I believe we can safely conclude that the Dazzler's ready to quarrel. Still, I doubt she will want to risk danger to others on the highway by doing it in a moving vehicle. Yes, this should do nicely. Oh, by the way, Allie, I go by the name Dust." And then we see Chase. And three figures move into the sandstone grandeur for a confrontation. And back in Denver, OZ Chase completes. Oh, so I think she accidentally called him Chance, and I think that I do remember seeing that on X-Men.net. Completes an anonymous phone call to the police. And so Chance is telling Cerebus's dog that he is gonna find Dazzler. Dazzler faces the man in her father's body and feels her fury mount, smiling faintly, mocking. He has just revealed how a telephone call lured Carter Blair to a Denver and a hotel room. "Where I was waiting, he rushed to your aid when he heard you had legal problems, anxious to use his connections to free you from them. Why have you done this? What possible end could justify hounding me, manipulating my life, and when that fell apart, seizing control of my own flesh and blood? You, Allie, your power, that's the end. It would be too much better to have you with us willingly, but one way or another, your light shall shine upon us." "Thanks. I thought I'd have to travel all the way to your Camp Silence to learn that. As for my light, you want it, you got it." And just like unloads like all this light onto his body. Yes, this is the test we wanted. You're one of our strongest and most fit, Jared. Don't succumb to the force she's hurling against you. Use it." Oh, so she was attacking Jared and not her father's body. "Drink it in. Fill it to your very depths, Jared. The power you've been promised is there. Let the light awaken it. That's the way. Stretch, Jared. Grow." And Dazzler's getting concerned because she's hitting it with all she has. The first of Dust and Silence's new wave comes to life. And Jared's just like weirdly becoming larger, but in a way that looks like he's breaking bones. It's like being slapped by an invisible giant. Allison makes herself go limp, straightening to spread the impact over more of her body area. It helps as much as anything can. She fights her way back to consciousness, forcing numbness from her body, painfully aware of rough ground beneath her as sensation returns. As she looks up, she sees that Jared has made a giant mini mountain, like he's about to drop on her. Which poor Dazzler is used to mountains being dropped on her, giant rocks and boulders. Oh, I say boulders, and they're in Denver, so that's a little clever. It is a blast of laser light as strong and controlled as the considerable skills of the Dazzler can make it. Cutting like a precision instrument even as it widens into a protective bubble around her, and then she cracks the boulder in half and it falls. And the force he wrenches from the newly unlocked chambers of his mind is equal to the demand Jared places upon it. The physical being which channels that force is not. And Jared just collapses. We have a bulletin. Talk about the difference of direct market and newsstand comics and how the box is going to reflect that. One will have a cool M, and others will just be a rectangle. The checklist. Let's see if there's anything cool here. Cloak and Dagger 4, a Secret Wars 2 crossover. Thing 31, Daredevil 226, New Mutants 35, Web of Spider-Man 10. Official Handbook of the Marvel Universe 2, featuring everyone from Beast to Clea. Amazing Spider-Man 272, introducing a major new spider foe, Slide. Power Pack 18, Curse arrives in the Secret Wars 2 crossover. Curse with a K, of course. Alpha Fight 30, Indiana Jones 33, Dazzler 41, what up? Micronaut 16, the Beyonder enters the Microverse in the Secret Wars 2 crossover. Longshot 5, Vision of Scarlet Witch 4, X-Men Annual 9 with the New Mutants and Loki by Chris Claremont and Art Adams. Incredible Hulk 315, Avengers 263, the Submariner joins up with this preview X Factor crossover. Oh yeah, and I'm pretty sure there was supposed to have been a car somewhere in Denver which has X Factor on the back of it or on the side of the car as a hint of what's to come. But I'm not seeing anything. Oh. Yeah. Let's see here. Conan Barbarian 176, Marvel Tales 183, X-Men 201, ROM 74, Power Man Iron Fist 121, See the Beyonders, you've never seen him before in the Secret Wars 2 crossover, so clearly Secret Wars 2 is just running amok. G.I. Joe 43, Nightcrawler 3, Eternals 4, Punisher Limited Series number 1. He's on his own at last because you demanded it. Written by Stephen Grant, art by Mike Zeck and John Betty. Marvel Saga 2, relive the origins of Spider-Man, the Hulk, and more. Baldur the Brave 2, continuing from Thor 362 by Walt Simonson and Sal Buscema, who I always love. My favorite Spider-Man artist. Sal Buscema, that is. Howard the Duck 32, X-Men Alpha Flight 2. Fantastic Four 286, don't miss the X Factor preview crossover. They're going to find an interesting body in that issue. Iron Man 202's Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man 110, Defenders 151, Star Wars 103, Thor 363, Curses on the Rampage in the Secret Wars 2 crossover, Transformers 12, Secret Wars 2 issue 7, Can even the Beyonder bring about a golden age on Earth? Marvel Team Up Index 1, meet all of Spidey's guest stars from issues 1 through 35. There was also a Fantastic Four Index 2, the lowdown on what happened in issues 25 through 60. Handbook of the Conan Universe, a treasure trove of information about Conan in the Hyborian Age. Doctor Who 16. Marvel magazines included Marvel Age 34, Marvel Fanfare 24, beginning the return to Weird World. Savage Tales 2, More Intense Action Tales by Gray Morrow, John Severin, Mike Golden, Herb Tempe, and Willem Gunkuntz. Epic Comics brought The Swords of the Swashbucklers 4, Gru the Wanderer 11, ElfQuest 6, The Menace of Madakoi. Epic Illustrations 33, the conclusion to Tim Conrad's Toadsworth, plus more illustrated tales by John Byrne, Mike Senez, Mike Vosberg, Dan Day, Phil Hale, and Mike Barry and John Totterbein. Star Comics was Planetary 10, Princess Ugly returns, but so does Vermin the Veil. Peter Porker's Spectacular Spider-Ham 5, Beware the Seniors Simians. Ewoks 5, only Wicket and Niza can save the forest, they hope. Muppet Babies 5, There's Danger in the Temple of Zoom. Care Bears 2, Watch Out for the Green-Eyed Monster. And graphic novel number 20, Hooky. Spider-Man meets a cute little girl who takes him on the most monstrous adventures of his career. It's an adventure interfered by Susan Putney, writer, and Bernie Wrightson, artist. Back to the comic. Dazzler's dad continues. Fight! I'm all that remains of this earth of your father, Owie. Give me your light. You saw it activate Jared's latent side talents. It can be even more for me. It can cleanse me, halt my endless race from body to body to escape death. Why fight to deny me that, when it would be also save Carter Blair from succumbing to extinction? The clash of wills when I take over a body is physically destructive to them, speeds them to dust and decay. The stronger the will, the stronger they crumble. I was certain this form would hold up until we were back at Camp Silence. But even in defeat, your father is a wonderful, obstinate man. Will you really let him vanish forever? You won't, Allie. You can't. Use your light. Save your father. For so long, Dad and I were at odds. It's only been recently we became close again. I'll do anything to preserve that dust. Even exhaust all the sound stored within me so you can't possibly be helped by my light. That's a shell, not my father. If he's found a way to resist the obscene mockery you've made of it, I'll see he succeeds. No! And she just blasts completely away from him. I won't be denied, Allison Blair. Look at you, spent from your noble little sacrifice. Think you've stopped me? You've created the greatest opportunity of them all. And you see he's slowly fading away. Until now, a mutant mind was just different enough, just alien enough that I couldn't risk trying to seize control, even with my power. But you exhausted every defense is down. I won't perish with this crumbling wreck. I'm going to become you, Allie. Take over all those powers, silence that I need for the dream. Yes, it's happening now, Allie. With my touch, you're so weak and the dream so strong. Badoom! And Chase has come in and shot him in the neck. And he is literally dust. I guess I should mention this is Dazzler, the all blue outfit with the Dazzler symbol over her breast and the red headband. And she did shed a tear. And Dazzler's saying, I owe you a cigar. I'm trying to cut down, partner. Let's move on. You don't want to see any more of this. And Dust has some haunting final words. Then let her hear it, bounty hunter. With this body collapse, our hold still won't be broken. After one failure, I took no chances. We have your mother at Camp Silence, Allison Blair. To save her, you will have to give in to us. The dream will. And Allison's just running to the car. I can't take that risk. Please don't follow, Chase. I won't want anyone else. I care about Hurt because these maniacs are after me. And, of course, she took the one car, so I don't know. Oh, no, I guess we see in the back there is the limo they were originally driving in. Oh, no. Dazzler took the limo, and has his truck still. In the unnatural quiet of the darkened ranch house. Pain rouses the woman caused silence. Pain deep and disturbing to her inner being as its most sharp and sudden ground. Dust. What has she done to you, darling? What has that mutant witch done? You entrusted me with the weapon to make her bend to her will. I'll see it's used, darling, terribly, terribly well. Next, Dazzler's farewell performance. Curtain. And there's a Dangerous House ad for the Punisher from Marvel where the action never stops. An ad for subscriptions. And inside back cover ad is a entry form so you can win some Starburst and a BMX bike. Back ad is for Netsy Quick teaming up with GoBots. So that's pretty cool. And that, everyone, was Dazzler 41 for episode 27 of Shout and Flame with Magic, the podcast. Thank you so much for listening and joining me as we reviewed it. I very much enjoyed reading it the second time. I guess the Turtle Suit, the daddies of Turtle Suit talk about this all the time, about how they can initially read or watch something Ninja Turtle related, and then it's not until they start discussing it where all of a sudden they get hyped on it. It's like, oh no, this was quality. And so I feel like that with Dazzler 41. So I'm glad we stuck with it. Now the cover makes a lot more sense. It's Dazzler shooting people off panel or off cover. Chase is there, looking menacing with his shotgun. Dazzler's decaying father is behind them, looming large. Oh, I guess it's his hands coming to crush them. And it's those hands that Dazzler's blasting off. And Cerebrus the dog is growling. So I should have led with that. I mean, I could have at least described some of the cover. So thank you so much for listening. If you'll give a like and subscribe to wherever you find the podcast, really appreciate that as we try to grow the podcast. You can follow the blog at shadowandflamewithmagic.com. I just added the links to the podcast as a header. It took me a little bit to figure out how to do that on the main page. I was like, come on, I've done it once before, but I haven't really done a major overhaul. Not like it's a major overhaul, but I haven't added anything to the pages on WordPress in forever, so it took a while to stumble onto it. You can follow me on Twitter, where I'm pretty active, and on YouTube at Jackal SIII. I'm trying to get subscribers there. If you would please subscribe or ask a friend to subscribe or just borrow people's phones. But no. And you can follow the podcast on Twitter at SNFWM as well as Instagram. I'm on Instagram too, but I'm going to definitely post a panel of Rachel waking up and referencing Kitty and Heath bars to the Instagram page and Twitter. So you should be able to tell when I start recording and figure it all out. Well, I'm not sure what we'll review next week, but until then, have a great week and please come back. All right, everyone. Bye. I got to work on these outros.